on Zoom, so we do have a quorum. And with that, if we can stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so I apologize for my voice tonight. I was sick a couple weeks ago and still have not recovered my voice. Those that have talked to me over the last couple weeks can probably say it's gotten a little bit better, but I am a little broken. So by way of announcements, I do want to announce that there are 4 candidates that have put their names forward for Finance Committee. We have 2 open seats. There's a Finance Committee Selection Committee meeting on February 18th. So hopefully we will emerge from that with 2 new members. Hopefully they can get sworn in on Wednesday, and then they can be here for our next meeting on February 20th. I will not be at the next meeting, so we'll have to, Jean will run that one. Also like to welcome Jen Warren Diamond to the team here. I think she's getting a little baptism by fire for sure, and we will hear from her a little later today. We have preliminary budget on the agenda where that will be changed a little bit more towards a extremely preliminary budget maybe, but Jen will talk about where we stand as of today. Any other announcements? Okay. Is there any public comment from the board?
No.
Jean, just raise your hand if you have one. I guess just for me to kick off, we are now officially in budget season. All 8 currently planned budget hearings and other related actions the agendas are all posted online. So we'll give it a sense, for folks who might be interested in certain departments, briefings, and other things. We will have to make a slight adjustment to it for the preliminary budget, but we'll talk about that during the meeting. Is there any public comment from the public? And if anyone has it, just raise their hands. All right. Next thing on our agenda would be town manager and finance director reports, if you have anything. Okay, great. See, we're cruising. This is going to be a short budget season. The next item on the agenda was added, which is the update, and it's a reserve account transfer request by the school department for their enhanced 911 cabling costs. So, Dr. Gilson, I can maybe turn it over to you or Ezzy or Dr. Burnham for the request. Just go over the request.
Would you like me to speak to the request, Chris?
Sure, or if that's what you'd like. Yep.
Or Dr. Burnham would be fine.
That's fine. You have a few documents. You have a memo from the interim town manager supporting this request. You have a memo from Dr. Gilson that summarizes the expense. And we're here to give you that quick overview. I'll turn it over to Dr. Gilson, and we can answer any questions you might have.
Okay. So I did put that Carter's in the SharePoint, and then I emailed Dr. Gilson's email to you all, I think.
saw that email. I didn't see whatever came from Carter.
All right, so why don't we work off the So Carter's basically says he's supportive of the request. And then I think the one from Dr. Gilson goes into a little bit more detail. So why don't we let you just summarize the salient points on it?
Sure. The 911 cabling project was extremely important. It complies with Ray Baum's Act and Kerry's Law, and compliance with local, state, and federal regulations are important. Local dispatch has repeatedly contacted the superintendent and IT manager requesting for phone systems to be brought into compliance. And districts not in compliance are potentially liable for fines of up to $10,000 plus $500 a day for noncompliance. So we really needed to pursue this project. It was unbudgeted. The total cost of the project is $65,574. And if you would, we would really appreciate the transfer request to help us out with this cost.
For a little bit of additional clarification, the project was budgeted, but when the technicians came in to start the project, the initial plan was to utilize the cabling to the PA boxes in each of the classrooms because there were not phones in each of those classrooms. But when they got in there to do the work, they then determined that the existing cabling was not adequate, and therefore the entire building needed to be recabled to have drops in every single classroom for the connection. So the additional 60-some-odd thousand was not part of the original quote that we got and not included in our budget to do this compliance upgrade this year.
Are there any questions from the board?
Yeah. When you found out you needed the additional work, was, because obviously that was beyond the scope of the original job, was the job requoted?
We got a quote from the company that gave us the original quote in the first place. Their quote was $106,000. So we went to state bid list and got an additional quote that came in at the cost here. It was early in our budget year, and where it was a compliance issue, we moved forward with it. But as the year has progressed, there have been additional unanticipated, unbudgeted costs that have come up. We've had multiple conversations with the interim town manager about some of these items that have come up. As he's indicated in the memo, we took a look at the potential for ARPA funding, but because the project had been completed, he deemed that it wasn't really an ARPA-eligible expense. We looked at, any potential other savings through other means, but then we discussed this option, which he supported.
So was a new purchase order issued for the additional work?
I'll turn that over to Dr. Gilson. I don't know that we put in an additional rec, or if we asked for the existing rec PO to be increased. Maybe Ms.
Amended.
Ayala might have that information.
Yep. Ms. Howe?
Well, typically, without the funding allocated, the requisition wouldn't be increased. So this is the first step before we increase the original requisition. So that's where we're at.
But the work has been completed?
Yes.
So where did you intend to get the funding originally?
Again, it was early in our budget year, and we had anticipated that we might be able to absorb this additional cost in our operating budget, which was already pretty tight with all of our expense lines. When we brought our budget in last year, even though it was an override for our budget, the original request that came in for expense lines in all of our school-based and department-based budgets came in extremely lean because we knew that we were facing cuts, and we were hoping to save as many personnel as possible. So we don't have a lot of wiggle room in the budget. Again, it was early in our budget year, and we had an eye on trying to carve out some savings here and there throughout the budget year. But we've continued to have unexpected, unbudgeted
Yep.
costs throughout the year, and we've gotten to the point where it's going to become a significant challenge for us to manage all of the additional unbudgeted costs along with this project. And again, in conversations with the interim town manager, looking at possible options, we discussed this as an option. And again, it was something that he endorsed.
So we're looking to go towards the annual town meeting to request the additional funding, $50,000?
No, we'll be looking for a reserve fund.
No, the reserve account is funded at the previous annual town meeting for FY '25, and it's allocated for the finance committee as these requests come through. So the request is coming from the school department to the finance committee to release the funds and make them available.
And I think the budget was $200,000 for this year, is that
I
right?
believe so, yes.
In the reserve?
And 15 has been previously released for the town manager search. And this is an additional request. And I would anticipate more coming down the pike as we get closer to the end of the year. The budgets are just very tight this year. Inflation and, salaries, contract negotiations, everything has been skyrocketing. There's a trend going forward. So I anticipate, as the meetings go on throughout the fiscal year, you might get additional requests from several departments.
So how much will this leave in the reserve fund?
Right now, there's 185, so the request is 50,
50,000?
65,574.
65, so it'll leave about 120, give or take.
For the rest of the year?
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No.
Jean, did you have any questions?
No, thanks.
Right. Carter had supported this request. His note was that, they did look for all sorts of ways, as were previously talked about, to backfill this. I do think where it's a 911 emergency system, it's a pretty important thing to get done. So I would personally support the reserve fund transfer. I think having this reserve fund is probably pretty good for us as a practice at the level we have it at this year. In the past, it used to be like 50,000 or something like that. So if there are no additional, I would, let me maybe stage it this way. I would recommend that I would entertain a motion to recommend transferring $58,320 from the reserve fund to the school department contracted services and $7,254.65 from the reserve fund to the school department computers purchase and lease line items. Would anyone like? You want to make the motion?
I make the motion.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. And we'll do a roll call vote. So Jean,
Aye.
Tanya,
Aye.
Jay,
Aye.
and an aye for myself. So it passes.
Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you. Hopefully you don't need to use it.
Thank you. Did you receive the form to sign and approve? If not, I could send it after we have this vote as a
Okay.
record, and I'll send a DocuSign for the members to sign, so we have a written record as well.
Okay.
All right.
We can, what do you want to do, sign it next week or?
I'll send it, next week.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Unless
we're-
you can print it now.
I guess I could run downstairs. I'll be right back.
All right, the next item on our agenda is preliminary budget. So I had spoken with Jen beforehand. I think she's going to give us a status of where we are and how we kind of work through this over the next couple of weeks.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and through you to the committee. My name is Jennifer Warren Diamond, and I am your new town manager. I've been here about 1 week and a few days. So I want to just talk a little bit tonight about why I am not providing a budget presentation. So as the committee is aware, work has been ongoing on this budget from the early fall through the capital process, transitioning into December, January for the regular budget process. The interim town manager advised department heads, committees, commissions, and boards of what our financial situation outlook looked like, and advised departments to be as conservative as possible and only requesting necessary increases. The interim town manager has met with the vast majority of the department heads and boards, committees, and commissions about their expenditure requests. Unfortunately, before his departure, not all of that was able to be reduced to writing. So I began last week with the intent to provide some information to the committee tonight, but to further explain why we will not be doing that, when you prepare a budget, you begin with your revenue estimates. And in reviewing the revenue estimates, there was a mathematical error in them, and also the total, the 2.5 allowed by Proposition 2.5 was applied not to the full levy from last year. It did not include the override amount, so it left us a little shy. So the good news in that is that we have a little bit more revenues than we thought. In addition, the calculation of local receipts, our inspections, our building permits, all the things that go into local receipts. The way that calculation was done was based on an average. I know Mr. Ayala had stated previously, I believe to both this committee and the Budget Task Force, that he really wanted to look at those local receipts this year and see if we could be a little less conservative because we were trending very high in those areas. So I would like the opportunity to do a higher or a deeper dive into the drivers behind local receipts and see which, if any, we can be a little less conservative on. Of course, conservative budgeting is the best practice, but we need to ensure also that we are not starving our operational funds by being overly conservative. So I'd just like the time to do a little more analysis on the revenues. In addition, I understand that the Capital Planning Committee has met with all proponents of projects throughout the fall and have established a general priority of projects. There are a few projects that have appeared on the capital list that have not been fully vetted, I believe, by the Capital Planning Committee. In addition, funding of the capital plan relied upon a set of financial policies that has not been approved yet by the town. It's a draft at this time, so it has not been fully vetted by this board, select board, ultimately adopting it. So the funding mechanism for the capital plan actually utilizes the tax levy in addition to one-time funds. So we know that we need as much of that levy offsetting our operations and not in one-time funds as possible this year. Lastly, while significant work was done on the expenditure side of the budget, there were a lot of plans that were in place about consolidating different areas, realigning some areas, and I have not had the opportunity to fully vet that out. So in making the way to this evening, I was endeavoring to be able to provide some information, and I realized that today I was just not going to be able to make that mark tonight, and I know that there are a lot of eyes on this budget. This is going to be a very difficult budget year. We're going to have a lot of conversations and a lot of collaboration. And in doing so, accuracy is paramount. And so I want to be sure that what we are presenting is accurate at the time, and I just don't have that confidence at this moment. So I am hopeful with a couple of more weeks, the team and I can have something better to present to you. I do want to thank all of those involved, the interim town manager, boards, committees, commissions, department heads, and most importantly, the finance director, Ezekiel Ayala. He's been working incredibly diligently to get to this point. And with that, I will entertain any questions to the extent that I may be able to provide an answer.
So you're saying 2 weeks?
I'm hopeful that on the 27th, we'll have the full budget presentation.
Any questions, Jay?
No, not right now.
Okay.
Jean, any questions?
No.
Okay. And Jen and I have been talking throughout the week, so I don't have any other questions, and I do think that, the additional time would serve us well. We have the opportunity to hear over the next couple of weeks from the town departments and their requests, which have already been given the direction to be fairly conservative this year. And then on the heels of the 27th, if that's when we can have the preliminary budget, the next week is the school. So I have full faith that you are working closely with school finance director and with Dr. Burnham to collaborate on both sides of it.
Yes.
Okay. Any questions on the capital in the process or anything else related to it?
Okay.
Okay. We'll also do that.
Capital budget, yeah.
Well, I'm just saying with what she had mentioned during
yeah.
her discussion.
Yeah.
All right, so the first department out of the chute this year is the IT department, so.
All right. Hi, my name is Casey Chisholm. Thank you for being here tonight to look over the FY26 IT budget. If anyone has any questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to ask as you see fit. On the second slide, as always, I like to introduce the team that is supporting the town of Lunenburg. So we have myself. Walt is the IT lead. Mason Green is the help desk technician. He's the person on site who most people see on a regular basis. Kara McCarthy is the IT admin assistant, also a person who people see and are used to on a regular basis. And then Suzer IT shared services, the people in the background that people don't see as often. They kind of keep things going. Network and security team, virtual office, the project manager, and the procurement specialist. On the next slide, just going over some initiatives that we completed so far in 2025. We just this past week completed the public safety phone upgrade to the VoIP phone system that matches the rest of the town and also makes them E91 compliant with the federal regulations, and it added some much needed features onto that system. Like prior, they didn't have caller ID on their phones, simple things that now they do. Next, we have computer upgrades. That's going to be something that's continuously on here. Now that we have a replacement cycle in place, we continuously upgrade computers as needed. Instead of in an emergency, things get replaced ahead of time. Increased roles and responsibilities for the admin assistant. So the hours that Kara was receiving did increase. That was something that the previous town manager was advocating for and did happen this fiscal year. On the next slide, we have the next two initiatives that have completed and working on. We did a townwide cell phone replacement At a cost savings, they replaced all of the cell phones, the majority of the tablets, to the T-Mobile devices. The big thing here was, again, along with the cost savings of that, we were able to deploy a mobile device management system, which we didn't have previously. So all of the cell phones, there was not really a proper inventory or any security around them, and now we have that deployed in our cell phone. So when there is turnover, it's an easy wipe of the phone and give back out to the next staff member, whereas before, if we didn't have contact with the previous employee and they had their personal iCloud on there, the phone is essentially bricked. So now we have more capabilities with that mobile device management. The next item on here is the library camera upgrade. This is not yet completed, but it is scheduled for the end of this month. Everything is purchased and waiting for installation. This is, right now the library does have 2 camera systems, and this is going to be replacing the older side of their camera system and increasing the security features that is currently there that the department head is looking to increase, and it also aligns with the current system that the public safety building has, which, again, the larger initiative to just start aligning all of the IT infrastructure throughout the town. This aligns with that as well. So on the next slide, before we look into FY26, I mean, we're hitting a period in the town where we're hitting like a maintenance almost. In the past 4 years, we've done a lot of upgrades and a lot of projects. We did an email migration, a document migration, a network upgrade, internet upgrade. So we're hitting, which is all great. It just means now we're hitting a maintain of the town. So there's not anything drastic on here of projects in that way. Software maintenance, we're going to continue to see, obviously, contractual increases in inflation with software. There is going to be an increase to the Munis contract. We are moving into a cloud-based system with that software, so that is going to be an increase on that line. Hardware maintenance, again, that's going to continue to be in that budget as a maintenance and a device replacement for a regular cycle there. Town clerk software, this is more of a wish list item. It's not necessarily set in stone yet. It's going to take some collaboration between our department, the town manager, and the town clerk. Right now, that system for like vital records and dog licensing is on an old Access database, and we just would like to see that moved into a more efficient platform and a cloud hosted. But again, wish list item, it's not necessarily set in stone. There's some collaboration that needs to happen still. And then the last item on this list would be the internet speed for the DPW. The current speeds are not sufficient for what the department is using. At the time of putting this together to today, I actually did get the cost of that, and it's going to be roughly $1,000 more per year to increase them from a 50 meg connection to a 500 meg connection. So I think that's a no-brainer to increase that. So I will be advocating to increase those speeds for them, because it's going to create a lot of efficiencies for a very small cost. So that number isn't yet in the budget yet, because I just got it this morning, but I will be requesting that in the FY26 budget. And that's all I have for FY26 changes or requests outside of the typical maintaining budget. The last slide is just questions.
All right, any questions from the board?
How often is the IT staff, on site?
Mason is here every day. He's here 5 days a week. Kara, her hours just got increased to 25, so she's here for 25 hours a week. I don't know how she manages that schedule. I believe Mondays and Thursdays right now, but I'm not sure exactly the hours. Mm-hmm. Walt is here, or myself is here. Myself once every 2 weeks or so. But Mason is that on-site technician that when, the help desk, someone sends a ticket into the help desk, he's that person who's going to resolve that. So right now it's 5 days a week.
And you guys are just taking care of the town side?
Yes.
And how are all the town buildings connected for internet?
They all have their own fiber connection, or not necessarily fiber. They all have their own internet connection, and then there are VPNs back to. There are connections back to the town hall for Munis. So
So is it fiber network to each building?
not every building has a fiber network. That was this building, public safety, and Ritter all have fiber connections. The other building, and the library does, but the library has a contractor called CW Mars that manages their network, so they manage that side of it. The DPW and the Council on Aging have coax connections. We did solicit some quotes 2 or 3 years ago from Comcast to see what it would cost to get fiber in those locations. I did just look back at that this week. Just for the DPW, the construction cost alone would be $29,000 just to get fiber into that building. So we're gonna look at just increasing their speeds on their coax side right now and see how that improves it before we go down the line of having some big construction costs of putting fiber into the building.
So the town doesn't own any of the fiber
Correct.
network?
No, the town does not own any of the fiber. It's all Comcast fiber.
So have we looked at what we're paying in fees to Comcast annually versus owning our own fiber network over time?
We haven't done like a specific cost analysis on it, but it is something that we can dive into further. There are, through the Community Compact Grant, there are grant funding options for like dark fiber or town-owned fiber that we could look into and do a more cost analysis of the differences between those two.
Yeah, I think that's something would be worth looking at for long-term upgrade to our infrastructure. And do we look at how much, like how many copy machines and printers and stuff we have per building and centralizing networking?
Yes, a few years ago when we first came on, that was something that we worked with the previous town manager on. The copier lease right now is, the amount of copiers in the building is pretty sufficient. I wouldn't recommend reducing that down any further than it currently is for the buildings. The printers is always up in, like the desktop printers, that's always a question up in the air of cost savings with printers versus copiers. Copiers are more cost efficient in terms of toner and equipment repairs on them, but there always needs to be a little bit of buy-in before we start removing desktop printers from people's offices for that. So that's always more of a challenging task for the desktop printers. The copiers, I think we're in a good spot in terms of the amount that we have in the town.
Okay.
Jean, did you have any questions?
Oh, thank you for the presentation.
One question I had, you mentioned the Munis, and I hear a lot about Munis. I've never been on a Munis. I probably never want to be, right?
Not this Munis.
But are issues behind us on that, or are
We're
we?
getting there. I think there's a light at the end of the tunnel. We're getting there, yes. I think this next jump into the cloud, we're going to see a significant reduction in issues. Right now, I can say, like Mason, a lot of his, and the previous person filling that role, a lot of his time was taken up by solving Munis issues. That we have seen that start to decrease, and I think the closer we get to this move to the cloud, we're going to continue to see that be a more efficient tool for the employees of the town, as he's been working more diligently on this upgrade, so he might have some more comments to make on that.
I could give a quick update. Right now, we're currently testing. The SaaS Cloud has been built, the environment. We have users testing, making sure that all their access and everything that they need to do their work is sufficient. And if there are any fixes and bugs, we're working through that. We'll continue to test through March, and the live date is expected to be the first week of April. Not April 1st. No April Fools, but probably the 2nd. But yeah, so far so good. The Tyler team, the company that owns Munis, has been very responsive, reactive, and very helpful through this process.
You mentioned town clerk software. One of the surprising things when I took over as chair is the amount of coordination that's needed to be done for scheduling rooms, getting Zooms. There's no workflow associated. We've talked about this one in the past too, but there's no workflow associated with things. Are there kind of municipal softwares or others, office software that we can start to get in place to make the process of just booking rooms, workflow through agendas to minutes, even minute-taking software? Some private boards, have minutes at the end of their meeting because there's just software that they're used to kind of come up with it. So is there anything along those lines that could be pursued?
Yes, definitely. I think the town clerk software that I was specifically talking about was focusing on like the dog licensing. Separate from that, there are some features within like Office 365 software that does allow for like booking of rooms. It hasn't been something that we've like dug into before because we need some backing and ways of like building the back end processes and foundations for that, and then we can provide like some tools to help with that. So I think there's going to need to be some collaboration between our department and the town manager to build those processes and then find the correct software that's going to help create those efficiencies. I don't know if Office 365 would be the winner of that, but I do know that they have the ability to like book rooms and whatnot in terms of note taking or minute taking. There are definitely some other softwares, but there would be obviously a cost associated with that, whereas if we could make Office 365 work within what we're looking for, it's already a cost that we're paying for within our licensing for email and documentation storage.
Okay. I think that's something we should look at. I know on some of the, the other boards that I'm on, large meetings get put into small conference rooms, and non-televised small meetings get put into the big conference rooms, and then that's, well, so-and-so has this room, but they've really been virtual for a year and a half, so we just got to get our hands around, because I think it is a frustration level for a lot of volunteers in town, as well as the flip side, the volunteers interacting with the staff. There becomes frustration for it. So if there's anything we can do on that to make, government run more efficiently, I think
Yeah,
that'd be great.
definitely. Let me look more into the Microsoft solution for that, and I'll provide some more feedback and work with the town manager and see what we can do.
Okay, and then, as always, if the schools can be on the same as us, so that to the average, citizen, we don't have to know, well, schools, they used to use School Dude, I don't know what they use anymore, and, this, well, we use this, and, oh, they have to call this person. A lot of tribal knowledge, I think, associated.
As efficient and as seamless as we can make it.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Okay.
Other than that, I don't think I have any questions, although I would like to get, the whole budget in actual laid out.
Yes. I believe we'll have that ready to send over. I have a preliminary one, but there was some changes in the account numbers, so that was being moved around a little bit. So I'll just work with the team and make sure it's ready to go before we send it off. But that should be almost ready.
And then just generally speaking, I would like to see actuals from, prior years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever we have, current, fiscal year 25 budgets, and then fiscal year 26 budget, so that we can kind of look at trends and make sure that, it's not just a snapshot in time.
Yep. Yeah, and I think the budget that I had been working off of had 23, 24, 25 on it. So I'll just make sure that gets included and sent
Okay.
over.
Maybe as you can help do
Yeah.
that globally for everyone, but I think standardized is also good, make sure that we understand, are we looking at last year, sometimes we were looking at proposed budgets versus town manager budgets and et cetera. So just consistency is always good for that.
Definitely. Okay.
And then if they can be in Excel, then,
Yes.
the geeks of us can run pivot tables and,
All the fun things.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Okay.
thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
One other question,
Yes.
real quick. And I don't know anything about cloud systems, but how are we, like, protected for backup?
So anything that's a cloud system that's not owned by the town, that's going to be the responsibility of the vendor, right? So like Tyler Technologies, they own the responsibility of backing up that data and the security of that data. Anything that we have in-house, any data of that sort, we do have backups that run on a nightly basis through our backup and security software. But anything, again, like Office 365, their backups are in their system. Tyler Technologies is going to have their backups in their system. We use like Assessor software for mapping and ArcGIS. That's all their backups and whatnot is going to be in the system that we have hired for that vendor that supports it. So anything that's in-house, the town purchases software to ensure backups are done on a nightly basis, and we have a turnaround if there is an outage of any data loss. We do have a turnaround for that. Anything that's owned outside of that by other vendors, those backups are owned by, or the responsibility of that vendor. I wouldn't know off the top of my head of like the turnarounds if something happened with that, but those are things that I can reach out to the vendors and get
Okay,
for that service level commitment from them.
okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so I don't have any additional new business on the agenda. I just started putting under old business budget discussions and warrant articles and budget task force recommendations as things that we've talked about in the past, and we'll want to, have the ability to talk through as we go through budget season. So with that said, I don't have anything related to those items, unless anyone else on the committee does. Minutes, I'm not sure if we had minutes in the
Minutes from January 9th.
January 9th. All right, did everyone review them?
Yes.
Okay, Jean did too. Okay. So I would entertain a motion on minutes from January 9th.
Motion to approve the minutes of January 9th.
Second.
All right, roll call vote. Jean?
Aye.
Tanya?
Aye.
Jay?
Aye.
And an aye for myself. So, let's pass. Next up would be any committee reports. I do have one thing related to committee reports. And for the, this kind of came up at the planning committee. They kind of kicked us off of the master planning steering committee.
Kick two off.
Us,
Finance
yeah, finance,
representative?
yeah. No one ever reached out to me about it. Evan was still sworn in as our representative.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
In order for him, he would have had to have resigned, and then the proper mechanism would have been for them to reach out to us, to re-identify someone. So they also kicked Parks off during that meeting. They didn't reach out to Parks either. That said, is anyone,
Are they even meeting? I thought they were having.
no, they haven't even met
I thought
during
they
that
had
time
quorum
either.
issues.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's a 15-member body, which
Yeah,
is
it's
a
a
little,
lot.
a lot, right? But there was no communication associated with it. Again, I don't know that Evan even resigned from it, which
I thought he
officially,
resigned from everything.
I don't know if he did or not, I don't remember. But anyways, I don't know if we care. I'm not itching to take on any additional responsibilities. We do have more members that will eventually come on, but if anyone's itching to get back onto that, I'm sure they would accept someone on from us in one fashion or another. Other than that, I don't have any other committee reports. Does anyone else?
Not offhand, I've been listening to a bunch of stuff on YouTube, but school committee has quite a deficit.
Yes. Yep.
School department.
School department, yeah. Okay. Any actions or topics for future meetings? Just by way of a reminder, our next meeting is on the 20th. I'll have to reach out to Tom to make sure that he can come, because we may have 2 additional members at that point. Hopefully we do, and quorum will make it easier. But we will hear from Council on Aging, Public Access, and Library. On the 25th, we have Police and Fire, and we're going to add the Land Use Department. We had not put them on. They seem to be someone that some years we put on and some years we don't. I think our forums often are used kind of as a good means for departments to kind of remind everyone what they do and kind of give a status of everything going on. So when I talked to Jen about that, we did decide that we will add land use on. So Chris will come in on the 25th. The 27th, that's an out-of-cycle one too, so that's a Tuesday. On the 27th, DPW facilities sewer, and then we'll add in preliminary budget in capital. So the 27th is looking to be maybe a long meeting, followed only by the longer meeting on maybe the 6th when schools and Monty Tech come in. And then if we hold everything else here, then we start getting into public hearings and votes on articles and that sort of thing. So that's kind of a preview of upcoming attractions here. Like I said, I will be out next week. There's a possibility that I'm out the 25th and 27th as well. I hope that I am around for those. But irrespective of all that, I will watch all of the meetings, those hearings. So those are the topics for future meetings, and all the dates are laid out in the agenda. All right, with that, is there any public comment from the public? Seeing no hands, any public comment from the committee? And I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
And we'll have to roll call it. So Jean?
Aye.
Tanya?
Aye.
Jay?
Aye.
And an aye for myself. We are adjourned at 7:50. Looks like we'll have 50-minute meetings throughout budget season. Thank you all.